So let's see, February 27th, 2022. um, I've been thinking about resiliency, static versus dynamic thinking, and dualistic versus synergistic thinking. The first thing is this resiliency. We talk about it a lot at the end of the master's degree in psychology. Um, and it's an interesting segue into political thinking and injustice and all that for me as a way of looking at how do you deal with injustice. And there's a comment by this fellow Jordan Peterson who's very dualistic and binary and black and white in his public speaking. I don't know about his thinking because I don't know him. He's like, well, if you have a bad job, you just quit and get another one. And totally avoids in all his public speaking the idea of how do we fight oppression, or should we, right? And there's a bunch of us think oppression is wrong, and of course we have this current idea that everything is subjective, and which is often used by oppressors to confuse people. But back to resiliency. What is resilience? What is emotional resiliency? How do we deal with that? And I'm on a Stoic site on Facebook, and they talk a lot about that. And the it is not the mindless acceptance of circumstances. It is keeping emotional stability through circumstances or regaining equanimity, right? And the idea that you never have feelings, um, and you never react to a situation, overreact or react inappropriately is not sensible. The idea is building resiliency, and that's where I was going to go with this is fitness. So we have I have this idea that all fitness is very much alike. So we have uh, Dr. Vint Blackburn talking about how mental and physical fitness are the same. Health. He uses the word mental health, physical health are the same, and he had a great talk about it. But the thing that we do forget about all that when we're speaking from the healing practices as opposed to humanity is there's a fitness to the physical fitness. There's how you eat, what you ingest, and what you do every day. And if you're eating very poorly and sitting on the couch every day and you decide to get fit, you can't just be fit. You have to have a long term plan and daily um, small actions that get you towards your goal. Excuse me. And that's a very interesting issue of if you have if you're stuffing your face with cartoons and no thought, your mental acuity is going to be unfit. You're going to be fat and out of shape if you want to, sitting on your couch, um, doing the same thing to your intellect as you've done to your body, or vice versa. If you are uh, always thinking and practicing math and doing intellectual puzzles, whether they're the games that are very popular on Facebook right now, or intellectual exercises, or going to work and figuring things out, your mind stays fit. Same with emotions. If you are not practicing being emotionally fit, your emotions get fat and out of shape, and you can't overnight change the way you emote, change the way you handle adversity. It's little baby steps again. And there's um, some scientific evidence behind feeling the sensation of pain from over exercising for your level of fitness in any endeavor, whether it's spiritual, emotional, intellectual, or physical. And that's why I'm trying to put out there they're all the same, and you need to practice whatever it is daily to get good at it. And I always tell people, yeah, if I'm today at my fitness decide to run a marathon, that's not going to happen. Now, if I say I want to run a marathon at some time in the future, today, do my 20 minutes on the elliptical, tomorrow, again, right? And then have a plan. And this is the very interesting thing about this other thing we have in America, which is nobody should help anybody. And somebody just put this on Facebook. Oh, helping people is arrogant. Why do you think you can help other people? And well, humans are interdependent. Um, if you were like me, believe in evolution, which is a reaction, and a lot of people think of evolution as a plan, and that the plan was to get to being human. And that's not what the theory of evolution says at all. The original theory is we individuals and groups of organisms react to the environment with mutations. And successful mutations create more of that species or organism in the future. And that's another thing that with this binary static thinking that's easy as opposed to difficult, right? And we were really admiring of LeBron James or Michael Jordan or um, uh, Florence Joyner Griffith or Tom Brady, who are great at athletics. They put all this time in every day. They get better at it. They keep getting better at it. They have talent for it. Well, wow, that's great. In America, if somebody's good at emotion or at intellect, we really don't like that. It's not even that we are like, don't recognize it, it's that we put it down, right? If you're doing well in school and you know math and you're very good at language, oh, are you pretentious? Are you trying to put us down? And that's a very interesting thing. And the human mind is very cause related. So why is that happening? Why is that happening? That's what my brain keeps saying. Was there a conspiracy to keep people from getting fit in logic and causal relationships as opposed to correlative relationships? Maybe, because it's pretty strong. Since I was a young man, people have been really just hammering against school, against intellect, against math. And why? Why are you doing that? And part of it is it hurts to think if you start thinking too much too fast, just like it hurts to run if you start running too much too fast. Or if you say, oh, I'm going to play football tomorrow, and you go out and do a full practice that somebody who's been doing football for 8 years does, you're going to be in agony for a week or more. And I think it's the same with the mind and the heart and the soul. And the soul I'm using as a metaphor for whatever spiritual thinking you do. What is the greater meaning of the universe? And so if you don't think about it often, it will cause you a physical sensation of pain that to think about it, and then you might get resentful of doing that. So back to emotional resiliency. How do you deal with an environment? And there was a great TV series I just watched. It was like Good Morning Veronica, which was interesting. It was about a woman who discovers um, endemic corruption in the police force that she's working in. And it turns out that her dad was framed and all this stuff. And how do you? But to me, so it was endemic. It was everywhere. And everybody around her said, well, you just deal with it. If you try to fix it, you're going to die right now. And it's unrealistic. And there was even a fellow talking through public media to Brian Flores, a football coach who is suing the NFL for racist practices in the hiring of coaches and saying, you, Mr. Flores, are not going to get anything out of this. And the critique of that statement was, what if Mr. Flores is trying to make life better for other oppressed minorities in the whole world and isn't so worried about his own state of well-being? And then in America, that's very pretend admired and not respected. You know, people, if you actually start fighting a systematic oppression, first of all, people are often told you're not doing it right. And if you're fighting for oppression, that's never said. And I don't mean never as in never. I'm overstating it and that's the way the human mind often works. We like to have never and always. We don't have. It's difficult again. So here's the thing about thinking is if you're out running 10 miles every day, that means you can run 20 miles pretty easily. If you're not running, you can't run at all. And we get stuck in this idea of, wow, that person's so much better than this, I don't need to try. Or why are they doing? Or the sour grapes. Well, that's not for me. Same with thinking. So um, and when the kids were younger, I would drive down there with the two kids to the shop, and then we'd jog back home, and it was a big adventure, about 7, 8 miles. And they were from the ages of 4 and 5 till a couple of years ago. We haven't done it recently because I got out of shape and I can't do it. And what I did with that was make it an adventure. And it's very interesting to live even in a small town like Santa Fe with how many people are like, oh, I can't take my car to the mechanic because I don't have a ride home. And well, you live 3, 4 miles from the mechanic. That's a quick, and if you're a competitive marathon runner, you're looking, wow, they run about, I'd say, average person who can finish a marathon cheerfully is going to run 8 or 9 miles an hour for 26 miles. So they could just wear their sneakers and jog back 3 miles in half an hour. And we don't think that way because of the brain is we train in America, looks to me like we train the brain to be easy, and there's this huge movement again against formal education. And why is that? Well, I wasn't taught to do my taxes. Well, did you learn math? Did you learn to read? What are taxes? Taxes are a complex word problem, and people continually make fun of complex word problems in high school and college, and then they complain because that high school did not teach them their how to do their taxes. Well, what did you do in math class? You resented it and you didn't do it, and now your brain is lazy. And that binary thinking or static thinking of taxes are not related to school math. And if I ask a person why not, I get very negative emotional reactions 99% of the time, that these people are just upset. Why are you doing that? I meant, no, well, really, I think that you're hearing something that isn't true. And because of the way humans evolved to trust and work with each other, and again, here we go, interdependency, if you hear something from another human often enough, your mind will begin to believe it unless you make a conscious effort to check out again and again every time it comes up. Check it out and say to your mind, this is not true, right? So, and that's a constant thing we've heard from generations and generations. And there's a similar issue around kids these days are horrible. Really, you just heard that a lot because it's not actually true. You, if you go back and look at your generation, I'm 57. So people my generation, that's a very great age to be so prideful of how we behaved from the ages of 7 to 25. We were perfect. Our generation was perfect. I went to school with you people and I worked with you people. We're not perfect. You were not perfect. And the kids these days have, if you look at just, and I say, oh, look how smart and caring they are, how interested they are in the whole world. And as a whole, how interested was your generation, the kids that were born from 1960 to 1975? How interested were 12-year-olds in the world at that time? I don't remember because I was dealing with crap at home. And so I could pretend, or I could just listen to other people and say, oh, yeah, that's true. We were great. They're not great. The world's going to hell in a handbasket. And and then stop that instinct. Oh, it's a conspiracy by people who want to control us and make us buy Coca-Cola and other sugary drinks that cause emotional, physical, and intellectual damage. And there's an interesting thing. I have a lot of libertarians like, oh, that's freedom. Oh, so um, you're free to listen to things that then destroy your life if you believe them, like the whole, if you drink Coca-Cola, the pretty woman will like you and you will be cool and popular. Well, okay, what if you don't drink Coca-Cola? What'll happen then? Well, you'll be sad and lonely and nobody will like you. Okay, and we have a belief system that thinks that that's true right now. And then back to resiliency of how do you build emotional resiliency if you are already an adult and don't have it because of early childhood trauma or physical illness or a genetic tendency, well, you got to start small. And there's kind of no room for that in the world right now. And so it's really tricky. So I was thinking more and more this last week, having struggles with if a person comes on our psychology group and says, "Oh, what do I do about this issue? I have 5-year-old, 6-year-old kids, and the ex-husband or wife is an evil, horrible person." And I'm going in my mind because I'm tired, I think, and because I'm like, what is, when you look at the statistics around successful outcomes of a divorce proceeding or right after divorce, of the emotional and physical health of those children, it's not very good. Why not just go back in time and not make that mistake of having children with somebody who you're going to hate in 3 or 4 years? And how does that happen? And so that's very against the stoicism I'm trying to practice of what's happening right now, and how do we, and here's the thing, right? How do I help this person make their situation better? Wow, that's a great thing. And people are asking, we ask each other all the time, how do you help me make my situation better? And it is true that a lot of times you give somebody some information and they have to do the work. And if they're not fit, they're not fit. They can't do it. You have to give enough information and enough help to help that person get to the next level of fitness, intellectually, emotionally, physically, spiritually. And sometimes it does include doing things for people. If somebody falls and breaks their leg and they're lying on the road, you help them get to the hospital. They have surgery for a femur break, for example. And then 50% of the healing is how well the surgery went, whether it got infected, how people treated that injury until it was reduced and repaired. And then 50% of the healing is how the human who was injured treats their injury themselves. Do they do their best to take care of it and do healthy things and get up and move around and face some adversity with courage? So here it is with emotional health. If you have, so metaphorically, if you have a broken emotional limb, we have to help you get to medication or rest or a supportive system until there's some healing that happens. And that's 50% on the society, on the doctor, on the family, on the psychologist. And when there's enough of that external help, then it's up to that human to start getting the little bit of fitness at a time, to where you don't have that system shock where you retreat back to the what we now call a maladaptive behavior. And a maladaptive behavior currently is considered something that causes you harm. And it doesn't mean that you don't harm others. It means that it costs you money or relationships or health. So if you're always mean to people because you're afraid they're going to be mean to you, then you don't have a good community around you. If you're in emotional pain and you're taking overdosing or uncontrolled psychoactive drugs such as alcohol or cocaine or opiates or anything, then it causes you not to be able to be consistent and keep activities that bring in financial remuneration in order to pay for food, shelter, housing, and all that. And if you're paranoid, another thing happens, right? So, and if you're, well, that's a very interesting physiological thing of, if you're in too much emotional pain, your body keeps triggering this adrenaline, and then a big sugar dump for fight or flight, and then cortisol to reduce inflammation. And then if there's not a physical process involved of huge exertion to burn all that sugar off, you get an insulin dump. And then you end up with a bunch of inflammation from the sugar staying in your system too long from not running or fighting or boxing or whatever you're going to do. And then you have cortisol, which is a kind of settles everything down, but it stops the process of growth and healing for a little while. And then you have the body reacting to the too much sugar, too much insulin, and you become insulin resistant, and you can get diabetes from chronic stress from early childhood trauma or And so how do we break that cycle without blame? And here we go with what Vip Blackburn said something very clearly in his podcast was we need to not morally judge people. When you have a strep throat or you have a broken arm, go to the doctor, you're not judged. We help you. When you have a broken heart or a broken emotion, you go to the doctor and then there's something wrong with you and we isolate you and we're terrified of you and we judge you. And that's real. One thing is really talking to. We're talking about this is something that is an illness that with proper care externally and proper care internally that people can be helped with. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that because that's getting kind of long.